Maybe I need to be a part of this.
He's in a nonprofit, for
Nonprofit.
God's sake. So he kind of lowers the average. So anyway, so we get together doctors, lawyers, academics, CEOs, VCs, nonprofit heads as a diaspora community, and we started in the US. Then we now have chapters also in the UK, Singapore, Canada, UAE, and Australia. There's 6 countries where the diaspora is extremely strong and influential. Of course, diaspora live in 200 countries, right? So we can't dismiss the rest of the countries, but as a core group, these 6 countries are most visible and influential. So using this community to be a force for good in the countries we live in, but also to be a force for good in India. So that's the intent of Indiaspora. Our website is indiaspora.org. We have a great newsletter if you want to keep in touch about the news about the Indiaspora. We also are doing a global forum next month in Bangalore. So all these details are on our website. But this session really is about focusing on the work that nonprofits do. So we have 4 amazing panelists to talk about how AI is used in nonprofits. Because a lot of discussion in this event and conference centers around commercial activities of AI, scaling of AI, the use of AI in corporate offices, and so on and so forth. We decided to give a different perspective here of how AI is used in nonprofits, not only to create efficiency in the nonprofits, but use of innovative business models in AI so that the communities that these organizations kind of work with actually are the benefiters of AI as we know it. So we've got 4 great panelists. I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction to each one and then dive into questions. To my left is Vilas Dhar. Vilas is the president of the Pat McGovern Foundation based in the US. A fact about the Pat McGovern Foundation and Vilas is they're the largest donors to AI in the nonprofit space. They have given away over $500 million in the past 5 years. Okay, that's what they do. Is they give money to nonprofits to put AI into their business models, into their organizations, and so forth. And he'll tell us a little bit more. Next to him is our new entrant, and she is part of our diaspora now, honorary member of the Indian diaspora, is Vivian Schiller. She has worked at New York Times, NPR, many different places in the media space, and now she's with Aspen Digital. So welcome. We'll give you an Indian name by the end of the session. We'll vote on it at the end. Next to her is Manu Chopra. Manu runs an organization called Karya. You might have heard of them, but they again have great models for how women and rural people are empowered by using AI on their smartphones. And very, very innovative model. You'll hear from him. Then finally, Utkarsh Saxena. Utkarsh is now bringing AI into the justice system. So again, you'll find many use cases. You know, Vivian is going to talk about misinformation and disinformation. Manu is going to talk about employment. Utkarsh is talking about social justice. And Vilas funds all these people. At the end of the day, they're going to leave with big checks, fat checks. Vilas is not smiling. Sorry, Vilas.
I'm smiling. I love it.
So Vilas, the first question to you. You probably look at dozens and dozens of proposals and grants that come from nonprofits to you, looking for money, looking for grants, looking for funding, capacity building, new programs, and so on and so forth. So from a high-end perspective, give us what the landscape looks like in terms of AI being used in the nonprofit space.
Love it. Thanks, Amar. And just a note of appreciation to you. You've been such an incredible convener and a builder and representing India around the world and the diaspora. So thank you for that. Really incredible. Friends, thank you. I have to say in this room, I'm so happy. I think this is the 5th or 6th talk I've given in the last few days. And these rooms are often full of curious people, but not everybody's curious about what we're talking about today, which is not what is AI, not as how to use AI to make the most profit possible, but a different question. How do we use AI to fundamentally support the dignity, the agency, the rights of people and communities around the world? And you cannot have that conversation without nonprofits, without civil society, with the organizations that we task to go to the very front lines of vulnerability, to ask the question, what's wrong and how can we help? Now, if you don't think about how AI can support those individuals, those organizations, and those communities, then what are we even doing here? But I'm going to take it one step further. It's not just how nonprofits use AI. If we stopped our conversation there, that would be a conversation about how nonprofits become customers, become clients, in some ways become subjects. Our work, with everybody here on this panel, is to change the game entirely. How do we make sure that people, communities, and the institutions that represent them are the architects of what AI looks like? How do we take the capacity to build frontier models and move it out of Silicon Valley and move it into the communities that we live in? How do we ensure that the application layer, the translational layer of AI, is being built in ways that actually incorporate the wisdom and knowledge of people where they live? And how do we make sure the uses are conditioned not merely by how you get more attention or more engagement, how you sell more products, but actually in ways that enforce the community dignity of people, that make sure they have economic opportunity, that they have access to education, that they can access healthcare when and where they need it, and that they have political dignity to participate. In order to do that, we have to build an entirely new model of participation. That's what the folks on this panel do, and it's why I'm so happy to be here. We work together to change the game. We do it in a few ways. As MR has mentioned, we fund, and I would tell you that's actually maybe the least important thing we do as an institution. Instead, we change the public narrative around AI. We lead from the front around purpose. We work with communities to tell their stories in effective ways. We ensure that we're creating compute capacity and data and talent that's embedded in countries and communities around the world. And then we invest in nonprofits and say, together, we can not just be something different than the tech companies, than the Sam Altmans and the OpenAIs, but rather that we can be something that works with them in complementarity, that they can build incredible innovation from the front, and we can build the translation architecture that makes the world a better place together.
Awesome. Now let's get to Vivian. I know today's world is filled with deep fakes, fake news, all kinds of stuff out there. So as consumers of digital news and other forms of entertainment, the biggest challenge has been, how do you know if you see a post? Is it real or is it fake? Or the types of posts that you get to see kind of take a certain point of view and try to kind of enhance that. How do you deal with this in today's world? And you're the center of all that. So give us kind of a bird's eye view and then get into some details on what this is all about.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I'm really delighted to be a honorary member of the Indiaspora. I will come to your question in a second. There's a very simple answer, but I just want to say first that at the Aspen, just a couple of words about the Aspen Institute and what we do. I run a program at the Aspen Institute called Aspen Digital, and our focus is on many things, and AI touches all of them. Security, information, which we're going to come back to, just every way that AI is touching all endeavors around the world, in human endeavors. And we work across the entire Aspen Institute trying to help all our colleagues understand how AI will impact what they do and how they think differently. They try to engage in a different way with people to make sure that whether it's a group at the Aspen Institute that's interested in climate change or income inequality or indigenous youth, what have you, to understand how AI will impact their fields. So that's a little bit about what we do. But because I come from the news media, and I consider myself, even through my various incarnations, as being a journalist in my heart, I care first and foremost about the information ecosystem. And AI is having a profound impact on the information ecosystem. A lot of it is actually very exciting. We work with news organizations all over the world of ways that they can use AI to help their audiences have deeper understanding of events happening in their communities and around the world. And there's a lot of exciting ways to do that. But we also look at the negative consequences, which I think is what you were getting at. And I will just say that AI is impacting the information ecosystems in two broadly profound ways, neither of which is particularly good, I'm sorry to say. One is what you alluded to, which is this concept of deep fake, sometimes called synthetic media. It could be, a video that, some of the AI companies are making available to make it very easy to, pretend you're somebody else, or you're with somebody, or you're doing something that you've never done. but also it includes, uncanny audio recordings that could be a telephone call coming into you. It might be a fake audio of your child saying that I've been kidnapped and you have to send money to X, Y, and Z or they're going to kill me. Horrible, horrifying things. Audio, video, photography. It is also filling our social media feeds with junk. And a lot of my colleagues in the field are very afraid of synthetic media because they think there will be some piece of fake video that will set the world off on World War III of, I don't know what, some world leader saying something or pretending to do something. I actually don't believe that's true. I think people are now so cynical about what they see that will turn into an even bigger problem, which is not that some fake will fall for some fake, but that we will stop believing anything at all. And when we see actual videos, whether it's from war or a celebration or what have you, could be something wonderful, could be something terrible, we'll think, I don't know if that's true. And when you stop believing anything you see, that opens up a space for autocrats or worse to be able to say, don't believe them, just listen to me, and I'll tell you what to do, what to think, what to believe, and that's a terrifying consequence. The second thing to think about AI with your information ecosystems is that because people are more and more finding answers to questions about news through their chatbots, basically anytime you see a box on a screen and you type something in, no matter what platform it is giving you information. It might be accurate, it might be inaccurate, but it is taking clicks away from news organizations whose critical reporting is the foundation of the models that is then giving you the answers that you get in your chatbots. And that causes a vicious cycle of sustainability for news organizations, and the more that these news organizations are hurt in their business models, the fewer sources of information we'll have. I could go on and on, but I'll stop there.
Oh, that's a fantastic overview. Really great overview of
I'll tell you how we solve
happening.
it later.
Yeah. Manu runs Karya, so why don't you give a brief overview of what you guys do? Because that's implementation of AI in a very interesting way, but people don't even know it's AI.
Yeah, super happy to be here. Thank you so much for setting this up, MR. So, at Karya is a Sanskrit word for work that gives you dignity, and we think deeply about the entire value chain, right? And the AI value chain or the AI economy starts with data collection, as we all know, builds on to model building, goes on to fine-tuning, and of course ends with evaluation. And I'll tell you about one of the districts we've done something interesting in, which is very relevant to Vilas's point. There's a place called Nandarbar in Maharashtra, which is 4 hours from Surat. That's absolutely stunning. If you ever get to go, you should go. This is like an ad for how beautiful Nandarbar is. And in this district, working with Ekstep, working with Bhashini, and working with the district collector, Dr. Mitali, who's a rock star, and they, in her district, she has 6 tribal languages, none of which have any AI models. And the question she asked us was, we have 45 days before the AI summit. Can we do something, right? Which I love as a question. I love a challenge. And we did. We ended up starting, we sent 3 members of our team to this district, and we started doing data collection in these 6 tribal languages. We collected data on how these languages are spoken, what are different dialects within these languages like Bhili and Ahirani, and we are doing all the data collection by the district in a project funded by the district. And thus all the data sets are owned by the people and by the community of this district. And the district, of course, is the least hierarchical of our Indian system. We then had to build the models, and then the models were built in the district by coders in the district. We had to do fine-tuning, that was done in the district, and the evaluations of these 6 technologies across healthcare, finance, education, legal, were all done in the district by the same people who would use these technologies. And if you go to, if you're here on 19th, Dr. Medali will be speaking about this work on the Prime Minister's Day, which is very exciting. There's also a booth at Bhashini where you can try out these technologies. And we actually had community members from Nandarbar today try them out. And I got the most incredible videos of them saying, oh, it knows my language. That's incredible. And again, 45 days, right? Which is to say this is not a hard problem. should we want to, if there is will? India has over 19,000 dialects. And as Dr. Kalikabali, my dear mentor, says, if, you know, a language is just a dialect with an army, right? So we have at least 19,000 unique subcultures that need to be protected, that need to be preserved, that need to exist online in a way that they make sense for our communities. And I think at Karya, what we're trying to do is change this definition, and Vilas said this so beautifully. Our communities are not passive beneficiaries of AI. I find it slightly patronizing the way tech sector speaks about our communities. Like, you know, yes, we can solve problems, but, you know, India doesn't have an information asymmetry problem, we have a power asymmetry problem, right? So it's not as if I built a chatbot that can give me access to information, I solve all the problems in the world, right? And it's very important, we get very excited by these technologies. So unless we change how these technologies are built, and unless we change the fact that technology remains a foreign force for most of us in the global south and it needs to come from us instead of coming at us, right? Unless that happens, we will not be able to center our communities in this process. One of the things that we've been looking at is evaluations. When we started doing evaluations around an year and a half ago, again, we had some of our clients say, this is where we lose you, right? Your communities are incredible, but an evaluation is really hard. You're looking at an AI model response, you're judging it on a rubric that is complex, like trustworthiness or local relevance, or is this crop guidance the right crop guidance for this part of the summer in this part of the country, and so on and so forth. And we've now, since that meeting I had with that client, we've done over 500,000 public and expert evaluations, including some with Utkarsh, which we're very excited about, which we just launched yesterday with Anthropic. And again, the idea is that who gets to decide whether an AI model is working for us? It should obviously be the people we are building the said models for. So we've now done these large-scale evaluations with Microsoft Research, with Anthropic, with Government of India, to show that our communities are best suited to do this work. And of course, that brings them these economic opportunities, which we care so much about, but it also makes sure they're not just, that they're really being taken into account and they're owning these data sets if possible, or they're benefiting from them in a way that hopefully doesn't make a repeat of the things we've seen in the past, right? So I think at Karya, to summarize, I would like for us to redesign the AI economy from the ground up, because the way it is set up today, it will never work for the people in the global south or in the global majority, right? And I think if we can make sure that these communities are truly centered again, like that's the only way we get AI to work for all of us.
Great. Thank you for that insight. And we'll come back to you, Manu, on the business model for you and so forth. Utkarsh is fighting social justice in a very unique way. And Utkarsh, why don't you give us a kind of an overview of what Adalat does?
Yeah, so as you said, I think I started my career thinking I would fight for social justice. I was young and idealistic, and I said cheesy things like that. And then I got to a courtroom, and I got a rude reality check, because courtrooms in the global south are completely broken. And I found myself spending more time trying to find the right document and calendaring cases correctly, and sitting for hours, not preparing for a cross-examination, but looking for a piece of paper that you realize that I was misled in law school. I was told only half the story. Justice is not just a question of law in India and the global south. It's a question of logistics. It's a question of manual and clerical processes that clog our systems and slow the systems down. And then you suddenly start realizing why Bollywood actors are screaming Tariq par Tariq, and why there are these delays and backlogs, and why it's not just a systemic problem, because my clients were either languishing in prisons as under trials because their bails were not getting listed, or my other clients were slipping into poverty and pulling their kids out of school because it was a punishing process. And so the idea of Adalat AI means courts, and AI is AI for courts, is to build AI and tech solutions specifically for district courts across India and the global south, to help them automate these manual clerical processes and reduce delays and backlogs. And what that means specifically is to identify these really mundane clerical points. Like, one of the biggest problems we work with is stenography, because in a courtroom, every word needs to be written down, the oral arguments, the cross-examinations. But in courts, there are no stenographers in India, so judges write everything by hand. If MR is a lawyer and asks Manu a question, and the question answer happens, everybody will pause, and then judge will write the question and answers down.
By the way, I have terrible handwriting too.
And that's part of the problem, because Judge A will get transferred and Judge B will come in saying, I can't understand what you've written. So judges create WhatsApp groups sending each other deposition photographs, saying, hey, what have you written? And Judge MR will say, it's been 2 years, I can't read my own handwriting. And then to resolve this, some states have come up with creative departments called fair copy departments that take these judge depositions every day and rewrite them by hand. Why? Because there are no keyboards in Tamil and Malayalam and Indian languages. So that's the kind of stuff that our court systems are spending time on. And so I think many lawyers have this realization that if you want justice to flow faster from the taps of the court system, someone needs to unclog the pipes. And so we are the proud plumbers of the court system of the Global South, where we're just automating these clerical pain points so that we can give back time to the judges to the stuff that really matters, which is decide cases, and in the process, ensure timely justice for all.
I want to now kind of move into the business models for nonprofits, even though nonprofits are supposed to only get donations and contributions. How do you implement AI in a way that there's a business model significance to nonprofits? And Vilas, you've seen a lot of these, so give us some ideas of how AI can help these organizations not continually go to people for grants, but sustain in a different way.
Yeah, thanks. I want to start by saying, and I say this with the kindest words in my heart, I think of you still as young and innocent. I think of myself as young and innocent, everybody on this panel, because you know what we do is we still do fight for social justice. And if that's the definition, I will take it all day long, maybe with the white in my beard, maybe more enthusiastically than you. But look, your question is very good. I have to tell you, I think we often think of nonprofits the wrong way. Nonprofits are not grant seekers. Their job isn't to go out and ask for money, and they don't. What they do is they try to drive enough revenue so they can do what they're deeply passionate about, which is change the world. The fact that we've set up a system where the only way they can do so is to go through labyrinthine and archaic ways of trying to get a grant should be a responsibility we hold and not an indictment we put on nonprofits. But we are seeing some things change and change in meaningful ways. The first will come directly to your question, the use of AI to change the way in which nonprofits engage with donors. Because much like the description you provided of how the court system works, traditional philanthropy works in some of the most arcane ways you can imagine. Many of you probably already know. Trying to work with development organizations or aid organizations or even foundations. Submitting hundreds of pages of documentation. Writing essays about what you do that aren't read by anyone other than one person in the organization. Well, AI can help all of that. One of the things we've done is build the first AI-driven tool. It's called Grant Guardian. It's used by philanthropies now across the world to use AI to automate the practice of looking at the financial strength of a nonprofit, of changing diligence so that you no longer have to sit and fill out those forms. You submit your financials in whatever way you have. We have a custom designed platform that takes that, evaluates it, identifies risk factors, and without making a decision, feeds it back to the grant officer or the program officer and says, these are some questions you should probably dig into before you approve. So we've got tooling that's changing the practice of grant making. I think that's an important start. The second is the efficiency of organizations. And I hope Vivian will speak a little bit to how AI is being used inside of newsrooms. But across all kinds of nonprofits, we're seeing AI being used to take away the frictional day-to-day administrative work. And when nonprofits operate on such tight budgets and margins, every dollar you save by automating internal administrative work is money you can spend on programs and outcomes. Now, in order to have that happen, and this is a core theme of our work, the answer is very rarely, what does the AI do? Because whatever the AI does, the question is, what do people do with it? And what we face across the nonprofit sector is both a challenge and an incredible opportunity. I think the social sector really did step away from digital transformation for the last 25 years in a really unfortunate way. I think for many of us, we were so focused on the work we were doing that this newfangled thing that was happening with enterprise software and technology, and it seemed like a world apart from sitting in a village hut, having a meal with somebody who told you that they couldn't quite figure out how to make sure the next harvest was safe. I think there was a reason for it, and I understand it, but it also feels like we left an opportunity on the table. Now with AI, we have that window open again. The question is, will nonprofits step forward and ask the question, as executives, as leaders, as workers in these institutions, can we figure out how to adopt these tools faster than the private sector? Can we bring them into our workflows in ways that actually create not just efficiency or productivity, but a new leveraged way to serve the communities we care about? And then, do we make sure that they have the tooling they need in order to do that? Because again, it won't come from platforms that are just generating chatbots. We need custom connectors that say, this is what nonprofits really need. How do we build the tool sets that enable them to do it? How do we invest in the behavioral leadership transformation? And when we have amazing exemplars, how do we lift up and celebrate those leaders in the same way that we celebrate the leaders of tech companies? I think if we could have that full arc, you'd see a transformation of our capacity to deliver impact. And I think that's one of the conversations that has to happen at conferences like this.
Great, thank you. Vivian, can you expound on what Vilas said here?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's, I want to sort of change your question, in answering your question, change your question a little bit. I don't know that AI is necessarily going to change the business models for nonprofits, but it's going to significantly, and these are two absolutely extraordinary examples. I'm ready to give you both money, even though I do not run a philanthropy. I'm so sorry. It's how AI can have a huge, can greatly affect the impact of the work. So one of the big misunderstandings, I've worked in not-for-profits for a while, and a lot of times people go, oh, that sounds so wonderful, you get to do such interesting work, but oh God, I'm sorry, you have to fundraise. And I think that belies a deep misunderstanding about how nonprofits work and why nonprofits can be effective. It's not about going up to people, and if it is, and if you run a nonprofit, I highly recommend you don't just go up to somebody and say, will you give me money? It doesn't work that way.
To be clear, that has happened to me at least 7 times today in this room, in this building.
Don't do
so
that.
don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. What this is about is finding mutual interest and passions around having an impact in a societally critical area. So whether it's about the impact that you're having on agriculture and having people across 18,000 dialects being able to understand, or the extraordinary stories that you're telling about unclogging, being the plumber of the court system. I was so moved when I was listening to you hear that. You are using AI to have a much more profound impact than you possibly could have had without it. And again, coming back to the world that I come from before Aspen, in news media, I am seeing, and sorry, I felt like I was Dr. Doom a little bit earlier, so I'm sorry about that. But actually, on a very hopeful note, what I'm seeing is not-for-profit news organizations, or even if they're not-for-profit, they are sort of, societally mission-driven news organizations, using AI, exactly what Vilas was saying, using AI to make things more efficient that are not about the core purpose of reporting and engaging with the community about issues and topics that are relevant to their lives and their community. So if you can sort of move away all that other stuff and just focus and use AI for good to focus on your core reporting, whether it's translation services that makes it so much easier to reach people, or whether it's transcription, or those are just tools, or really rethinking the entire way that you engage in the entirely new ways that the people, the citizens in your community are sort of engaging with information and how they use it. We need an entire rethinking of this, and that is beginning to happen with the most advanced news organizations, many of which happen to be not-for-profit because they are unburdened from the tyranny of necessarily having to show quarterly results for shareholder value. And it's been really, really thrilling to see.
Awesome. And Manu, can you kind of talk a little bit on the business model of you taking money, but you take money to do services, and thereby created a new business model for the end person who is working with this product. So walk us through that, how that happens.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll start with something generic that I think in this current time, running a nonprofit, right, obviously very challenging. And I do think I encourage nonprofits I meet to have a strategy of working with the market, have a strategy of working with the government, so that you are able to find partners who can carry your work forward. At Karya, we've been very lucky to have had a business strategy focusing on the market from day one. We work with all the major AI labs in the world. We work closely with governments. We work closely with large foundations like the McGovern Foundation, and they would fund us to build data sets in often low resource languages, or in the case of like major clients, to do evaluations. We now engage with over 140,000 people I may have already mentioned this. Sorry, this is the 5th panel of the day. Did I already? I did not mention this. No. Okay. I appreciate it. I'm getting deja vu. This is my 3rd panel in this room, which is hilarious. But we now work with over 140,000 people across every single state in India. We've been able to engage with them to do over 65 million jobs, like 65 million tasks over the last 2 years. And they've been able to build foundational data sets in over 70 Indian languages, right? And I think that to me is super exciting, the scale of what we've been able to achieve, and that's only happened because of how sustainable the model is. Last year, we gave away 81% of all the revenue we made from data contracts as direct wages to workers, which is very exciting. And worker wages grew 6.8x last year on year. So we are seeing tremendous growth in the work that we are doing, and we're very, very excited about the prospect of what the market is doing here, right? So you see all of these major AI labs. One of the goals of the summit is talking about how multilingual, multimodal models is a priority. I think that's very exciting because we genuinely believe that our communities, and by our communities I mean the communities that all of us serve, are the best people to do that. Yesterday, working with Bhashani, we launched this thing called Samudai. I always say every good nonprofit needs a path to its own irrelevance, right? Otherwise, we're just building legacy projects. And yesterday, we launched this thing called Samudai. We've now trained these 140,000 people. They've done work for all of these fancy AI labs. And Samudai is a portal run by the government of India where any of you can go and directly engage with Karya workers without us. And as long as you pay them a living wage, and as long as the work is not content moderation, and as long as the work protects the mental well-being of our communities, we will help transfer it from your desktop to our workers' phones. We will help the workers do the work. We will not charge a single penny, and the worker will get all of it, right? And we're very excited. We launched it yesterday with senior Métis leadership, and we're very, very excited to think about clever ways we can work with the government. Now, we did that because, look, the government of India spends, the India AI mission budget is incredible, right? Like, we have the resources to spend on this stuff. We have state governments that, I know of a single state that spends $50 million a year just on protecting their own language and doing digitization in that language. And the chief secretary asked me, how do I bring that money from my state directly to the people of the state who could benefit from that $50 million? And I think things like Samudai can do that. And again, because we're a non-profit, this is like destruction of moat basically for a typical startup, right? But because we operate as a non-profit, we are excited about this because for us, success is how do we bring more economic opportunities to our communities? And of course, in that process, how do we make sure AI works for all of us? So I think that's the, Shannon Farley from Fast Forward calls it the non-profit judo, which is what are things that non-profits can do that for-profits can't do because they're just different incentives and nothing wrong with that. But I think those two things, both the market and the government, again, have been extremely successful for us. And I think it's the path that will get us to our stated goal of $1 billion in wages to 1 million people in the next 5 years.
Amazing. I love that. Saying you're going to kind of kill yourself many times over, which a company can't do, right? A commercial enterprise can't do. And think of very different innovative models on that. Having said that, Adalat, give us a backdrop. How many million cases are outstanding in India and kind of what Adalat can do in terms of reduction of cases, fair justice? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so India has 50 million cases pending in courts, and studies show that at our current rate of disposal, it's going to take us 300 years to clear this backlog, whatever that means.
Nobody will be alive, the defendant or the plaintiff.
Which is why in India, property cases are fought by the grandkids, not the original deed holders, because that's just how long cases take. 80% of India's prisons, not many people know this is, I think, one of our most depressing statistics, comprises of under trials. So they're not convicts serving a sentence, they're under trial, waiting for their cases to get over, and they're just trapped in courts, which is why we say the process itself has become the punishment. We're currently in 9 states in about 4,000 courtrooms. That's 20% of India's courtrooms, 1 in 5 states. Our internal studies show that we're doubling and tripling the judicial output every day and cutting case resolution times by 30 to 50%. And we're doing a randomized control trial with JPAL. We are thrilled to be guided by Esther Duflo, Abhijit Banerjee, and Daron Acemoglu, the OG kind of RCT gang, who are doing the first randomized control trial for courts and AI to see how much it can actually reduce delays and backlogs. To come on the business model point, actually, before I talk about the business model, I want to share a little bit about how we think of our scaling model. Because I've seen a lot of fascinating AI solutions out there, and in our experience, especially in a space like the judiciary, which is very new, which has no experience of engaging with civil society, unlike education and health, where there are multiple nonprofits and there's a lot of legacy work there, painkillers work better than multivitamins. It's just a very simple mantra that we follow. It would be lovely, multivitamins, it would be nice for you to have this nice end-to-end solution that will make you more productive, but there's no kind of pull demand from the system that's asking for it. Whereas if you go for a painkiller, there's a high fever in the system, the scaling is much faster, you're dragged into the system, and they're kind of pressuring you to scale, which is why people were confused we chose stenography. But when a judge is writing depositions by hand, it's physically exhausting. They're scribes and not judges, and so the painkiller model becomes much more effective. And then once you have a foot in the door, it becomes the means to have a conversation about the multivitamins. So now that we've demonstrated our impact with the stenography solution, scaled it in multiple states, most excitingly, by the way, 2 states have now mandated Adalat AI. So Andhra and Kerala, if you go to any courtroom in Kerala today, they're no longer recording evidence by hand. It's happening on our platforms. It's the first state in the world to actually mandate an AI solution. And now that we have their trust, they are the ones coming back to us and say, hey, can we build these other multivitamins? Can we build the paperless filing, the digital transformation, the systems that actually Vilas was talking about that unfortunately civil society is neglected? And I think that sets us up for a business model where eventually we are also seeking irrelevance and government adoption. The entire idea is to build this in a way in partnership with courts so that at some point, today compute is expensive, the courts don't have GPUs, they don't have internal talents, but at some point, what are today's unglamorous IT teams in public sector need to be AI teams. That talent needs to be in-house, the compute needs to be in-house so that we can migrate these systems and the state can run them. And especially for sovereign AI functions where things like confidentiality, security, privacy are such high stake, it's actually better the sooner you migrate those solutions. And so our approach is philanthropy is a stopgap arrangement, as stopgap capital, to kind of fill in that gap, demonstrate the possibility of this model, but at the same time equip the state to kind of imbibe, internalize these solutions and adopt them in the long run so that we can have the UPI moment, but for the courts.
Fantastic. So Vilas, turning back to you, you look at lots of models, lots of grants coming in, grant requests coming in. Any other interesting ideas you've seen that you want to enumerate in the nonprofit space?
Yeah, I mean, I could keep you here for hours. We don't really take grant applications, but we do a ton of work with partners. I could give you 100 use cases of how AI is being used in incredible ways. One here in India, in Rajasthan, we're working with an incredible group called Kushi Baby. For 20 years, they've been here doing work at the front lines on maternal health in last mile villages. These are the villages, you take the road as far as it goes, the bus as far as it goes, you get out and you walk to find these villages. What they've done in just the last few years with our partnership is take all of the data they have from 20 years of this work across villages across Rajasthan, built a geospatially informed AI model that then lets them ask some questions. One of those questions is, show me the clusters or the areas where you have worse health outcomes than other places. The first time we ran this model, and this was in the first 6 months that we worked together, we identified 6 villages where consistently, when young mothers had their first child, those infants were having very low birth weight, which, as you all know, is an indicator of a lot of other health complications that come. They then sent in folks to ask the question, why is this happening? They learned there was cultural practices around diet and other things that meant there were specific vitamin deficiencies. They worked with the government, and 6 months after that, they had shipped in supplements and began to see statistically significant changes in health outcomes. Now, it's a very detailed story, but let's talk about what it means. You take the analog data that's really only held by nonprofits or the government. You build an AI tool that lets you extract from that data meaning and wisdom. You then bring humans in to say, what actually happened here? And then you're able to deliver a solution that materially changes the lives of potentially millions of people. None of it requires $500 billion in compute infrastructure. It doesn't require putting data centers in communities where they extract water and power and create negative externality. It does require communities who understand data, who can do the work that Manu described so powerfully. It does require institutions that care about people, and it requires a mechanism that says we will put purpose over profit. This is maybe the most important lesson that comes from this. All of this is within our hands. There's nothing that keeps us from doing it, except that we have to change the fundamental expectations of what we expect from technology, what we expect from government, and maybe even what we expect from ourselves.
Awesome. I know there's some questions. I'm going to kind of lead that. Keep it extremely brief, 10 seconds or less.
A stimulating conversation, amazing stories. The reason I needed to interrupt, I'm sorry for that, is because I'm questioning the very fundamental of what's written there. Societal good, global non-profit innovations, as a corollary, are profit social hazard. And is AI going to turbocharge that? It's not 80-20, it's probably 98-2%. And my question, sir, is that without Earth Federation, we are still loitering with the sovereign nation states getting weaponized and burning $2.7 trillion, which could come to you and do lots of societal good. So my point is that, are we signed on human extinction? Have we asked the children and the younger generations for that? I don't think so.
Okay. So the question is, what does the next generation think about all this stuff? Anyone want to opine on that?
Should we take a few more questions? Given we have only 3
Sure.
minutes.
Let's go for it. Seema?
Thanks, Amar. Vilas, just what struck me was the brilliance of you saying, work yourself to irrelevance. Why can't we just change it on its head? There is not enough money in the world of philanthropy to solve all problems. What if we say, how can the seed catalyzing private capital and switch that mindset to saying, instead of irrelevance, I'll become for profit?
Hi guys, it's a fantastic job you are doing here. AI for nonprofit is by itself a great topic, a very important topic too. In my field, I'm president and founder of an educational organization. We are into educating young children from grade 1 to grade 10, and we provide them free education. How does AI allow us to bring this quality education to all these marginalized folks, 200 million of whom were unexposed to education during the COVID? It just tells you the mammoth amount of problem that exists. But it beats my head, how do you do this?
Good question on education.
Hi, I am Prerna. I work at ANSWER, building global capability centers in India. My question is for the Adalat AI. Quite amazing to see that we are stepping in and putting AI solutions to good use where we really have a problem of cases. My question was, do you feel, and you might have experienced firsthand, the challenges, basically restrictions and people opposing the AI infiltration into legal cases? Because what I see is cases are all about how you handle the defense, how you actually speak in a court, and it actually tailors the mind of the judge. So those capabilities AI still has or not has, but are people okay with AI judicial statements, AI making the case itself, AI giving the jurisdiction all alone and all by itself? I know it might be human in the loop right now, but do we see maybe an AI defense lawyer coming up soon?
Specific. So Vilas, why don't you take the first one on the funding, that Seema brought up, the question. Yeah.
Could you skip my question, please?
No, we'll come back. We'll keep your controversial one for the last. Yeah. This was.
Well,
Yeah.
I like this question. I absolutely agree. I mean, I think, look, we have to be innovative. We often spend a lot of time talking about innovation and technology. Right. What's the next frontier product? What's the next frontier model? We don't spend enough time talking about innovation in our social institutions. And I think the question was a good one. Now, I'm not sure that's the right answer, but how do we expand the scope of what companies are responsible for, what philanthropies can seed, and what technologists can build? And I think we could do something great with that.
And can you make a nonprofit a for-profit? It was part of the
I mean, of
solution.
course, and it happens all the time. And again, I want to be very clear. Nonprofit is a philosophy, a tax code status, a state of mind. Nonprofits can generate revenue, can do so profitably, and can use it to sustain their work. It happens all the time.
They should blur that.
Yeah.
Patient's capital is
Yeah. Let's take that after the session is over. Go ahead,
I just want to
Vivian.
add
Yeah,
one
please.
quick thing on that, which is, this is a very important point. If you are a not-for-profit or a nonprofit, you still have to bring in more money than you're spending. I know this sounds so simple. I mean, it's the same as a for-profit company in that sense. The only difference is what happens to that differential. But a nonprofit is not a magic wand that makes all of those, your need to have revenue, go away. Sorry, very important point though.
And Manu, can you answer the question on education? 200 million kids, How do you get to the kids? Any thoughts on that you have?
It's a tough question. Let me think about it. But why don't we have?
Yeah,
Kashan,
let's do the core AI defense lawyer, AI
Yeah.
plaintiff, and AI everything.
No, so that makes me nervous as well, which is why our philosophy today is, as I said, to deliberately automate the clerical pain points to create the windfall of time to leave the decision making to the human judges, right? I don't think the technology is at a point where you can hand over decision making, and there are lots of low hanging fruits where you can make incredible impact by automating these clerical processes and giving them back time. However, we should be prepared that there will come a point in this journey where the technology is actually very solid. And in the global south, one of the biggest problems is as our judge population ratio, like our teacher population ratio or government bureaucrat population ratio, is incredibly low. And we have to ask ourselves, should the judges be listening to traffic tickets? Is there a world where you can automate just traffic tickets, where there is no risk of hallucination or bias, right? Take those cases away from judges. Maybe the first decision comes from an automated bot, and then it goes to a human judge on appeal. I think that's where the world is headed. But today, I'm with you. It makes me nervous. There are no AI judges or prosecutors. The point of AI is to remove the hurdles that come in their path to do the work that they're supposed to do so that you can expedite justice delivery.
Awesome. I'll say a quick thing on the education question. Dahlberg announced the GAILA thing today, which is the Global Alliance for Learning, and it's incredible. I think it tries to answer your question. I don't know who asked the education question anymore. Yes, please check out the GAILA Charter. We're part of it. So many incredible organizations are part of it, and it tries to answer the question on how does the future of AI in education look like for so many people. Yeah.
So, your controversial question, sir. So, who wants to take a shot? Give us what you want from us.
AI turbocharge profits being social hazard and bring us to human extinction.
Right.
If we don't stop the
So-
overheated lorry, at doomsday clock, 85 seconds to midnight on January 27th.
Okay, there's a doomsday clock. Companies are making too much money. What do you do?
And pedo-philanthropy is what we stir the images of when we hear philanthropy. That's
Okay.
where the money is going. Epstein Islands.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get it. So let's move on.
It's very evident.
Okay. So, sir.
Profit is going to Epstein Island.
So, sir, can we move on here? Please take that off record, okay, offline. So, question on the last question for you, all of you, is where does AI go? Just imagine in 5 years or 10 years in the nonprofit space, or whatever space we call it at that time. It may not even be nonprofit, profit, but what is your take on it, Manu, in 5 years or 10 years? Is Karya still around? Is Karya for-profit? Whatever be it. What do you say?
Look, I think one of my favorite researchers in this space is Eric Prinjofsson from Stanford High. And he has this beautiful line in his research paper where he says, if we automated all the work that ancient Greeks did, we would have gotten to vaccines faster, right? Which is what I think about. There is no limit of human ingenuity, right? We are incredibly creative. We are, like, I walk these halls and I just feel so inspired to see what human beings can create when they come together. Look, yes, AI is going to create, it's going to bolster economic productivity for some of us. It is our moral responsibility to make sure that AI works for all of us equally. That's what all of us are trying. We work very hard, genuinely, to try to make sure that happens, right? But at the same time, I'm excited about this future where, AI is a partner to all of us. And what is the vaccines of our time? What is stuff that my kids would have that I would be like, oh my God, like, how did we live without it? And I would love for Vilas